Welcome to this explainer. Today we are diving into a completely fascinating collision between two worlds that honestly almost never interact. We're talking about the super rigid letter of the law meeting the highly dynamic, unpredictable realm of theoretical physics. We're going to break down some incredible source documents detailing the legal defense of Dr. Chen Jingyuan. He's a physicist who actually used complex systems science to fight off criminal cyber charges. It's an absolutely brilliant look at how scientific reality can completely upend our traditional legal definitions of fault.
Okay, so let's set the stage here with a really perfect analogy straight from the defense text. Think about it like this. If you breathe out carbon dioxide right now, you are, technically speaking, affecting the Earth's atmosphere. But would any court of law hold you personally responsible for causing global climate change? Obviously not, right? The impact is mathematically negligible. And as we're going to see, this is the exact same logic the defense applies to how people interact on social media.
So here is our roadmap for the explainer today. We're going to cover 1. A physicist on trial, 2. The intrinsic system disorder, 3. Edge nodes and robustness, 4. The math of cascades, 5. Causality in complex systems, and we'll wrap up with 6. The empirical aftermath.
Let's jump right into Section 1, a physicist on trial, science meets law.
To give you some context, Dr. Chen was charged with a cybercrime variant of picking quarrels and provoking trouble based on some social media posts. Now, the prosecution's whole framework operates on a very strict linear view. Basically, action X directly causes outcome Y. You tweet something, you cause social disorder. Simple, right? But Dr. Chen's defense comes at this from a complex systems perspective. In the physics world, action X is just a tiny micro-perturbation. It gets completely absorbed by this massive system Z long before it could ever theoretically produce outcome Y.
To really make this defense stick, the documents rely on a couple of core scientific concepts. First up is the CAP theorem from computer science. This rule proves that in any distributed network, which absolutely includes massive global social media platforms, it is mathematically impossible to simultaneously maintain perfect consistency, availability, and partition tolerance. Simply put, perfect, completely orderly consensus across a giant network literally cannot exist. It's a physical impossibility.
Next, we have to think about the shape of the network itself. Social platforms are what scientists call scale-free networks. They are not flat, and they're definitely not evenly distributed. Instead, they're dominated by a tiny handful of massive hubs. Think huge celebrities or official mega accounts with millions of followers. And surrounding them are millions upon millions of tiny, totally isolated edge nodes. Basically, if you are just an average user scrolling on your phone, you are an edge node.
Which brings us to Section 2, the intrinsic system disorder. Is chaos a crime or a constant?
So how do these really abstract scientific definitions actually alter the legal framework? Well, the defense points out that because social networks are bound by that CAP theorem we just talked about, intrinsic disorder is actually their baseline physical state. A certain level of chaos isn't some weird anomaly or malfunction, it is the natural, default resting state of the entire system. Because of that, you can't legally blame a single edge node's tweet for causing a system's baseline disorder. It would literally be like blaming a single drop of water for making the ocean wet. It just doesn't make sense.
Let's move to Section 3, Edge Nodes and Robustness, the physics of a single tweet.
When you look at the specific structural logic of Dr. Chen's account within this vast digital ecosystem, the scale is honestly staggering. His account had fewer than 100 followers and virtually zero interaction. On a scale-free network, that equals practically zero influence. He wasn't a hub. He was sitting at the extreme, totally isolated tail end of the network graph. He was as small of an edge node as you can get.
And the defense backs up this lack of influence with some hard math, specifically physicist Reuven Cohen's formula for network robustness. See, scale-free networks are incredibly, remarkably resilient against anything edge nodes do. Even if you took a metaphorical pair of scissors and completely snipped away all the edge nodes, the massive overarching structure of the network wouldn't even flinch. Therefore, a micro-perturbation from Dr. Chen's tiny account simply does not possess the physical energy required to disrupt the macro network.
Okay, on to Section 4. The math of cascades, modeling the probability of an avalanche.
Remember, the prosecution claimed his posts caused severe disorder, but we have to ask, what is the actual mathematical probability of those specific posts causing a network-wide avalanche? To figure this out, the source documents use something called the Galton-Watson branching process. It works like this. If the average branching factor, meaning the number of people who share a post for every one person who sees it, is greater than 1, you hit a supercritical state. That means an avalanche. If it's exactly 1, it's critical and totally unpredictable. And if it's less than 1, it's subcritical, meaning the chain of information will inevitably just fizzle out and go extinct.
Now, for an isolated edge node with under 100 followers and absolutely 0 engagement, that branching factor is mathematically guaranteed to be vastly less than 1, and the result of that, rapid subcritical extinction. The information hits a dead end almost the second it's posted. The defense uses this theorem to drive home the point that the probability of this specific account triggering an avalanche of severe public disorder isn't just low, it statistically approaches absolute 0.
That leads us into Section 5, Causality in Complex Systems, the butterfly effect trap.
This is where we hit the core legal tension of the whole case, causality. The prosecution relies super heavily on a kind of butterfly effect logic, suggesting that tiny microscopic actions can have massive catastrophic consequences. But here's the catch. The butterfly effect only actually happens if a system is already in a highly unstable supercritical state. If a tiny perturbation like a tweet with 0 engagement somehow manages to cause a massive collapse, that means the system was already dangerously fragile. This argument completely shifts the root cause away from the individual node and places the blame squarely on the structural instability of the system itself.
So, when we stack all these arguments together, we're looking at 4 escalating layers of an incredibly tight defense. First, system logic proves these networks are naturally disorderly. Then, structural logic proves edge nodes completely lack the power to disrupt the big hubs. After that, dynamic logic proves the information mathematically went extinct anyway. And finally, legal logic brings it all home. Even if a collapse actually happened, because it required a highly unpredictable, supercritical system state to begin with, it falls under Article 16 of the criminal law as an unforeseeable event. That completely voids any criminal liability.
Finally, let's look at Section 6, the empirical aftermath, the real-world control group.
Now, theoretical physics is great, but it really needs to hold up to observable reality. And there is a genuinely fascinating real-world postscript to this entire case. Those original posts, the ones that supposedly caused severe disorder, they are actually still online today. And guess what? Their engagement remains at absolute 0. Absolutely no societal avalanches have occurred. This profound silence serves as the ultimate real-world control group. It empirically validates all the subcritical mathematical models presented by the defense. And in doing so, it utterly destroys the prosecution's linear legal claim of causality.
Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. As we wrap things up, I want to leave you with one final kind of philosophical question raised by these source analyses. It's one that really challenges how we fundamentally define justice. If a system is supposedly so fragile that a single whisper from a tiny edge node could cause it to collapse, who is really responsible for the chaos? The node that whispered, or the architects of the fragile system?